Hello, my beautiful darlings. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Andres, and if you're hooked on books and stitches, you've come to the right place. Today's video, if you don't know already by reading the title and the thumbnail, it's gonna be my July reading wrap up. I fear that it was a decent reading month. I'm not gonna say it was like my best reading month, but there was two 5 stars, so that is indication that it was not a bad month. But there was a couple books that I should have maybe DNF'd. So yeah, let's get right into it, y'all. So if you're new here, I do like to begin the video with some stats. So let's start with the total amount of books that I read was 8 books, which was a total of about 3,224 pages. The average time to finish took me about 6 days, so about a week, I guess. The moods always varying here between mysterious, emotional, dark, intense, and a little bit adventurous were like my biggest ones. And then sad, reflective, lighthearted, and funny were the other smaller moods. I read an even 50-50 split of medium to fast paced books. Pretty cool. And then the page count fell, 75% of it fell between the 3 to 500 mark, which is very typical for me. And then there was 13% over 500 and then 13% under 300. The genres were definitely varying, but it goes anywhere from thriller, contemporary YA romance to horror, fantasy, dystopian erotica to LGBTQIA plus, mystery, historical, you name it, I have it here on the list apparently. And then my average star rating is a 3.88. So that's not horrible for having actually 3 5 stars. I totally thought that I had two, but for having 3 5 stars, that's pretty good. And now let's get into the review portion of the video. So how I'm gonna start doing it moving forward is that we're gonna start with the lowest rated book of the month, and then we're gonna work all the way up to my highest rated 5 star reads of the month. My lowest rated book of the month is Under Your Scars by Ariel N. Anderson. Now, this book was chosen as like a little book club that I made with my sister in law and with one of David's cousins. We created a little book club called Smut Sluts, and we chose Under Your Scars by Ariel N. Anderson for our first book. So yeah, Under Your Scars, you are following, it's a dual POV, so you're following Elena and Christian. Elena comes from a very regular schmegular lifestyle. She's not used to like anything lavish. She lives very humbly, very normal person. Whereas Christian always grew up as the very rich, entitled, selfish type of human being because he grew up rich. And then their worlds collide, and they obviously, goes into the fact that they fall in love and things of that nature. But Christian has a split personality type of situation where he's Christian, but he's also someone known as the Silencer. And the Silencer is someone who commits crimes throughout the city, and he's known as the Silencer for his MO being duct taping all of his victims with red duct tape after he's finished with them, of course. So there's a whole bunch of lore that you find out about Christian as to why and how he became the person that he is and why he has that split personality. We also get the lore about Elena, how she grew up and where she came from. And then the book took a pretty drastic turn at around the 20% mark of something occurring that I don't like reading about most of the time. I There was definitely trigger warnings at the beginning of the book, and I read them and I understood them. So it's my own fault for going into the book still knowing about those triggers. But I didn't DNF it. I will say that I didn't DNF the book. I kept pushing through. It was just very off-putting to have to go like read both perspectives in that situation. Honestly, that was not like the only thing that was so off-putting to me about the book. Also, the fact that there was so much emotional abuse and manipulation from Christian onto Elena is it was so unacceptable in my opinion. You don't emotionally abuse and manipulate someone that you actually say that you are in love with. That's toxic. That's horrible. And for Elena to voluntarily put herself through something like that, like I was struggling so hard to get through those parts. And then for the ending of the book to result in the way that it did, I was like, I should have just DNF'd this so long ago. There was no happily ever after, which I think I knew that going into the book already, but that ending was literally what sealed the deal for me that I really should have DNF'd it. Like, I would have not cared about not knowing that the book ended that way. So, sincerely, I would have not cared. Overall, I honestly was not enjoying the book. Like I said, I should have really DNF'd it at that 20 to 25% mark and just said F it.
But I didn't. I pushed through and I finished it, which I regret, honestly, but whatever.
I rated it overall 2 stars, and that is me being nice because, like I said, the first 20 to 25%, I really did enjoy it. I was loving the romance and the lore that I was finding about. I was really intrigued to see how Elena was gonna find, like, process and deal with the fact that it's Christian plus the silencer is not just Christian, but honestly, no, uh, just no. I do not recommend. The next book I'm going to talk to you guys about is The Crash by Frida McFadden. This book was also a book club book, but this one was chosen in the book club that I have with my mom, which is just my mom and I. She chose this book for the month of July. So this book is actually a dual POV. We're following Tegan and Polly. Tegan is a pregnant lady. She's in like her early 20s, I want to say, and Polly is more of in the early to mid 30s, and she used to be a nurse in the maternity ward in the local hospital, but she no longer is. She just is strictly at home, and she's just like a housewife nowadays. The story starts out by we find out Tegan is actually pregnant, and she's pregnant by this man who was supposed to be a one night stand, but we turn out to find out that it was actually different. He actually drugged her and did things against her will, unfortunately.
Another book with this topic.
They're basically trying to go and get an agreement that Tegan will not speak about the baby or ask for anything or even mention it or take him to court or any of that, as long as he pays all the child support and alimony that she needs to take care of the baby. Basically, an NDA. She's signing an NDA to go ahead and make sure that she's taken care of for the rest of her life, and he makes sure that she is never bringing this up again. She did not know that she was used against her will and got pregnant in that sort. She thought that she was willingly doing it with this person because she wanted to. But she always had like a brain fog. She thought that she was so drunk that she can't remember it well. Come to find out, the day that they come to go ahead and get the paperwork signed, she finally like kind of goes like this, and she figures out, wait a minute, this man just did something to me that I was not in agreement to, and for that reason, she did not sign the NDA. After not signing the NDA, she gets a call from her brother, and her brother's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Why don't you come up and visit me for the weekend so we could just relax and get away for a little bit?" The brother lives in like this mountainous ski resort area, so and there was also a blizzard on the way, and Tegan was still so smart to get behind the wheel at like 8 months pregnant, and she was driving to her brother's house, and on the way to her brother's house, what happens? She crashes, and then this mysterious man in a truck comes and saves her, and this mysterious man is Polly's husband. That's when we get Polly introduced to the story. Polly, like I said, is an ex nurse that used to work in a maternity ward, and more recently, she quit her job to take care of her mom because her mom was doing really, really ill, and she was already in hospice, and she wanted to transition her to her own home to take care of her in her final days. Then, doing that, since she was a nurse, she was able to convert her entire basement into like a little hospital room. So it worked out perfect for Tegan. Tegan is 8 months pregnant, just suffered a car crash with a fractured foot. So they take her and they put her into this basement to take care of her. And then things develop from there. I really don't want to say anything else because obviously the story starts to develop from there and things get a little crazy of the sorts. But honestly, it was so unfortunate for me because typically Frida's books and her plot twists typically get me. I'm not gonna lie. Like when I first read The Housemaid, I was like, damn, like I wasn't expecting that at all. And then I also read The Inmate by her, which I loved, and Never Lie as well. So I was expecting, like a plot twist or like for the story to be super suspenseful and things like that. But honestly, this book was so mid. We find out the plot twist maybe halfway into the book. And then, like, you know how she always does a third act plot twist at the end, too, somehow? Yeah, I kind of already knew that and figured it out. It was very, very predictable. It was so like unsatisfying. The only part that was satisfying was, I guess, the absolute ending that we find out, like how everyone's story wraps up in a happily ever after, which is nice. It's just, I don't know. I think the style was different for a Frida McFadden book. I don't think she went with her usual writing style or like usual like format that she follows in her books. So I think that's why it wasn't so gripping to me. It wasn't that suspenseful. I just wasn't feeling it, honestly. But overall, I did give it a 3 stars. It wasn't a very average book, nothing to rave about, honestly. If you are a Frida fan, I would say you could pick it up, but am I telling you like you have to read it right now? No, absolutely not. Like you can maybe even skip it if you want. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Hand of the Devil by Dean Vincent Carter. This book was actually recommended to me by my boyfriend David, so thank you to you, baby. So this book was actually very, very interesting. It started out like so strong. So to give you context, the book is basically following this guy called Ashley, who is a journalist in a science magazine. And in this science magazine, they always talk about, like specific creatures or animals, and they go into like the whole background of the animal. It's like one of those scientific magazines, kind of like a Nat Geo or something like that. But this one is called Missing Link. So then Ashley all of a sudden gets a letter from this random man saying like, oh, I have this super special creature that is like a super rare species of a mosquito. It's huge, it's like never been studied before, it's from like an urban legend type of deal. I promise it's worth it if you come and visit me. Just from that letter I would have been super sus, but at the same time he's a journalist working for a magazine that has deadlines and things of that nature, so he can't just give up on any chance that he's potentially given. So he went ahead and ventured off to this old man's island. He lives in an island off of the coast that you can only get to the island by boat. He gets to the island, he meets the old man, and the old man starts to kind of give him the runaround, like, oh yeah, I'll show you the creature now. Yeah, I'm gonna show you it now. Oh, why don't we sit down and have lunch? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Eventually, it starts to become afternoon and tonight. There's a storm coming, so the guy's like, oh, the old guy tells him, oh, I don't want you to travel. It's not safe when it's storming. Why don't you stay with me for the night, and then we'll do your interview and meet the creature tomorrow. And Ashley, being oblivious as he is, went ahead and stayed. The next day rolls around and he gets his interview, but then we start finding out more details about the creature. We see the actual mosquito is like this huge mosquito, like with a huge sucker. And the urban legend is basically that the creature has a mind bending ability that is able to take over your mind, control you, and then it stings you with its stinger, and it starts injecting this like saliva into you that starts to eventually obviously kill you, but it also burns you from like the inside out. Clearly, that is very creepy, very like unsettling. But then Ashley starts to do a little more hunting throughout the house, throughout the little island, starts to discover more and more about who this old man is, and the story starts to develop from there. And I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil anything else. Sincerely, though, just the first chapter of this book, it kind of was. It went back in the past to give you an example, not an example, like give you the story of an occurrence from the urban legend with the mosquito. And just that first chapter was so gory and so like gripping, exciting. It gets you hooked like from the beginning for real. But I'm not gonna lie, when the book started to progress and started to develop, it was fine. It was a little bit of a slow start until Ashley started to find out more background on the actual mosquito and about the old man and the island. But then the resolution to everything was so like simple. It was very, very like, oh, okay, like that's it. That's all that needed to be done to like get rid of this. Okay. I was very disappointed. I really thought that there was going to be at least a little more action and a little more. a little more something. I don't know. It was very like unsatisfying for sure. The ending. I was like, okay, that was totally pointless in my opinion. So overall, I did rate the book 3.5. It was still very very interesting. You know, learning about the urban legend of this of the action mosquito. I like that it is like a creature feature type of deal. The synopsis was saying that you are after reading this book, you're never gonna want to leave your home without mosquito spray.
I don't agree with that statement, honestly.
Like if you just do what they did at the end of the book, apparently you're saved. So don't even worry about the mosquito spray. But yeah, overall I do recommend it because it is very gripping, exciting, and interesting, very good like urban legend type of deal. But if you want a little more of a satisfying, exciting conclusion with some action and gore, you might not get that. So just keep that in mind. The next book we're going to talk about is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I was expecting a little more from this book, I'm not going to lie. I just didn't get what I was looking for from it. And I've heard this from other people too that have read this series already. They tell me the same thing like, oh, the first book is not that great, but as you go along in the series, it gets better. So I'm still definitely going to give the rest of the series a chance because I have all four books already. But the first book was kind of like, okay. So we are following a dual POV as well,
Can you tell I like dual POVs apparently?
following Emmy Ryder. Emmy is from Meadowlark, Wyoming, and she is a professional like horse racer rider. She moved away for college, and she was still, professional rider racer of horses, but she had an accident that led her to be kind of afraid of horses and afraid of racing and riding, and she decided to just go ahead and go back home. So then we meet Luke, who is actually a bar owner. He owns the bar of the town, which was actually his father's bar that was passed down to him. And he also does work at Rebel Blue Ranch for Emmy's parents as a horse ride trainer. Obviously Emmy and Luke meet again like after many months or maybe even years, and they started to get a little more friendly. They had their little like witty banter back and forth, but slowly they start to develop feelings for each other. The slow burn of the romance honestly was something that I really did appreciate and like, because I don't mind insta love sometimes, but a slow burn where you actually get to feel how they start to develop their feelings for each other, and the little nice random acts of kindness that they do for each other and things like that. It's really really nice to see that. The romance was slow burn, but the like plot of the story was super fast paced, which I think was a very nice mix for me, just because I did like that, we kept going through the timeline, like we kept jumping weeks and weeks and we kept finding out of other things, and I liked that because it kind of kept me intrigued. But then another aspect, which was the slow burn, really also helped me stay in it because I wanted them to get to the point of them realizing that they have feelings for each other and they want to be together. I was not the biggest fan of Emmy or Luke. They weren't very interesting main characters in my opinion. Like there wasn't much to them that made me fall in love with their characters. I was more excited when I was reading about Teddy or about her brother Wes. Emmy's brother Wes was Chef's kiss, like Chef's kiss. Like I know that he is going to be my next book boyfriend. Like I'm almost positive. One thing that I did notice that I liked a lot was the representation of mental health through Emmy. So Emmy was depicted as having ADHD as well as sensory issues, which is really nice to see. I don't think I've ever read specifically maybe a romance with any representation of the sorts, so that was really nice. But one thing that was annoying the crap out of me was the little pet name that Luke had for Emmy, which was Sugar. Like I totally understand that we're like in the Wild West and this is a cowboy romance and things of that nature, but that pet name of Sugar, I was like, oh my god, I'm sick. Like, sick to my stomach. Like, please stop calling her Sugar. Overall, I really did enjoy it. Like, the romance part was really, really cute. very fast paced in terms of the plot line, but it's not my favorite romance. And I also saw so many similarities from the Rose Hill series by Elsie Silver, and I read that one a few months ago, and I kept like comparing it, and I shouldn't have because obviously it's different authors, different types of stories and things like that, but it's just so many similarities where I'm like, ugh, is this like just a copy paste but different location? But anyways, enough of my hot takes. I rated that book overall 3.5 star. Not my favorite, but not the worst book I read this month for sure. My next book is going to be Julie Chan is Dead by Lian Zhang, and this was actually one of my most anticipated releases of 2025. So we are basically following Julie Chan, who is your regular schmegular everyday just grocery store attendant, lives a very simple, basic life, very, very humble to say the least. And then she also has a twin sister. And her twin sister is the exact opposite of who she is. She is famous, an influencer online, the whole nine yards. But then one day, Julie receives a call from her twin sister that sounds very unsettling. Something along the lines of, help me, was being said, and that she was wrong. And Julie was like, this is weird. So she lets it go at first, but then she wants to go investigate and make sure, obviously, that her twin is fine. When she goes to her apartment and sees that the door is unlocked and, things look are kind of weird, she finds her sister dead on the floor. Obviously, the police come, they start asking her questions, and they begin to assume that this is not Julie, that is actually her twin. And Julie decides to go through with it and decides to take her twin sister's identity. And then the story goes from there. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what I had in mind for this book, but I really was not expecting for it to take the turn that it did at all, which is what I liked the most about this book. Very commentary heavy on the influencer lifestyle and how cultish it could appear from the outside until you're actually in the inside. I don't know why I didn't know that this was a thriller, but apparently it is a thriller. I wouldn't really say that it's like suspenseful and I'm like nervous to find out what's gonna happen for a good like 70% of the book. Like all of the action happened in the back end of the book for sure. When I tell you that I was not expecting for the book to take the turn that it did, I really was not. There were bits and pieces that definitely hinted at the turn that the book was going to take throughout, especially once Julie became Chloe and she got integrated into the Belladonnas. You start to figure things are kind of weird and sus, but once the twist comes around, you really find out and everything starts to tie in together and make sense. The ending, honestly, good for her moment for sure. All in all, I rated the book a 4 star. It was, like I said, my most anticipated release of 2025, and it really did not disappoint. And I do recommend for all of you thriller girlies out there to read it because it's like more of a comedic thriller, which was enjoyable. It's like a breath of fresh air. Okay, so then the next book that I want to talk to you guys about is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This is actually a new release by V.E. Schwab, and this was actually the first book that I read by her too. And when I tell you that I am gooped and gagged, I loved this book so much. Like so much. People always worded it as toxic lesbian vampires, and I was like, okay, but it totally makes sense, and like that's the best description anyone could possibly say about this book. But obviously it's not the only thing. So we are following three POVs ranging all the way from the 1500s to 2019. The 1500s, we're following Maria's timeline. Maria is living in Spain, I believe it was, as a regular person, and back in the olden days, you as a woman, you were courted by a man to be married, like, or also kind of set up already, like previously set up by your family to be set up with this man. Maria was initially set up to be with I believe he was a viscount. He was kind of like a king of or a prince of some sorts for sure. I think it was viscount. I'm not fully certain though. He was the one that was set up for Maria to be married to and to live out her life with. which she went along with because, back in those times, you were literally forced as a woman to do as what a man said, unfortunately. And I hate that, but whatever. And what I hated the most was that this man's name was also my name, Andres. Like, how dare you, V. Schwab?
How dare you, Victoria?
Then when we get to the book really only focuses on Maria's POV. I'm pretty sure we get introduced the 2019, which is Alice's POV, around like the 10 or 15% mark, but it's just like a little sprinkle of it. But then when we get to like the 20% mark, when I tell you that my jaw was on the floor, it was underneath the floor. I was bamboozled with what happened. I really can't say what happened because I don't want to spoil it. And that part of the book is really what solidified for me that this is a 5-star read. At the 20% mark, already figuring out that it's going to be a 5-star read, that's how you know this book was all about, good for her moments, supporting women's wrongs. It was super, super gory. Like, there was a lot of gore in the book, which I appreciate. This is like such a unique type of book. Like, I don't think I've ever read a horror fantasy in the sense like that.
Vampires, okay, with vampires.
V. Schwab does very well in the aspect of bringing such an atmospheric feel in the writing style. She has such beautiful prose, in my opinion. She's absolutely amazing when it comes to imagery. Like, such evocative imagery was done in this book in all timelines. Like, you really got the sense of where you were. Obviously, we already know that the book is based about vampires. You know that vampires bite and turn people into other vampires. So I gotta admit that the way that the Schwab wrote the process of how a person got bit to becoming a vampire was so cool. She really went in depth in describing like the feelings, the emotions, the actions, and the things that overpower you and just transform you into this other creature. It was so, so good. I must admit that the biggest content warning that was depicted throughout the entire book was grief. Every single person in each POV was definitely experiencing some type of grief and trying to overcome it in a sense. And the underlying message throughout the entire book is just trying to find one's purpose in life. From all of this yapping that I've done about this book, if you can't tell, it's obviously a 5-star read for me. It was so perfect from start to finish. I have no notes. I wish I had the physical book so you guys could see all the tabs that I made on it because it was so, so good. Like, I loved this book. The next book I'm going to talk to you guys about is Watermoon by Samantha Yodo Sambao. This was actually one of my Libby holds that I had that became available in the month of July, and I literally ran. Like, as soon as it came in, I clicked it and I was like, yep, I'm ready to read it. Let's go. So, Watermoon is based on this little pawn shop that is hidden within a ramen restaurant, right? And people go to this ramen restaurant because they want to purchase ramen, of course. But if they have this underlying sense of regret over something, instead of opening the door to a ramen shop, they open the door to a pawn shop. And within this pawn shop, that is where you meet the pawn shop owners and you're able to speak with them and tell them, oh, I thought that this was a ramen restaurant. And then the pawn shop owner's like, well, it is, but if you have anything in your life that you regret, that's why you opened the door to this pawn shop instead. So would you like to sell your regret to me for a better life? But then we also get introduced into the timelines of the pawn shop owners, specifically the daughter of the pawn shop owner. Her name was Hannah. Hannah is getting her father's pawn shop passed down to her because her father is retiring. And once it is passed down to her, she's very like stressed out about the situation. She feels like she's not ready to tackle such an important task of the sorts because it's a more of a magical aspect versus realistic aspect because she's gonna be in control of helping people get rid of their regrets. So then, she gets kind of drunk, and then when she wakes up the next day, she's kind of like in a daze. And when she realizes and comes to realization as to what happened, she sees that the whole pawn shop was ransacked and her dad was missing. And she needs to go on a mission to go ahead and find her father. But before she goes on this mission, she meets a gentleman by the name of Keishin. Keishin was initially going to the ramen restaurant to buy ramen, but he ended up opening the door to the pawn shop. And Hannah and Keishin befriend each other and they go on the adventure of a lifetime to find Hannah's father. And that's all I'm going to say about the book because obviously there's a lot more that goes into the adventure of finding her father and as to why her father got lost in the first place and the pawn shop got ransacked and things of that nature. So the fantastical elements of the story are absolutely stunning. Like things I have never read about, so many unique fantastical elements. This book's prose was the absolute most beautiful thing I've ever read in my life. I swear, like such beautiful metaphors all told throughout the story to actually give life into the story as well, which I thought was so powerful. I'm also very shocked that there was such a pretty strong plot twist in the story. I really wasn't expecting for it to be a plot twisty type of book. I was expecting more of like maybe a cozy fantasy in a sense, but I really was not expecting the plot twist. It was very enjoyable of a plot twist because it was like a little shady on Hannah's side, but at the same time, like the reasoning behind it was really good. And then, of course, there was a happily ever after, and I love me a good happily ever after to conclude the story. So, if you can tell, I rated this book a 5 star as well. I highly recommend this book, especially for you fantasy lovers out there. It's very unique in the fantastical elements section of the book. It's something that I'm pretty sure that you probably have not read about before. And also, Japanese literature never ceases to amaze me every single time that I read it. It's always so beautifully written that it makes me only want to read Japanese lit, I swear. And then the last book that I want to talk to you guys about is Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. I obviously rated this one 5 stars. And honestly, I don't have to talk about this book because I'm pretty sure every one of you and your mothers and your fathers and your cousins know about the Hunger Games. But obviously, in my opinion, Catching Fire is the best book in the trilogy of the Hunger Games. Fight me for all I care in the comments, but it's the best one. But yeah, like I said, since everyone knows about the book, I don't want to go too much into it, but really reading it now as an adult versus when I first read it when I was like maybe 12, it really like just reignited that love that I had for the Hunger Games and reignited like the little kid in me, like when I was reading Catching Fire, it was bringing me back to the times when I was younger and how obsessed I was with the books and how I would go to the midnight premieres for the movies. So yeah, every book in the Hunger Games trilogy, because I haven't read Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes or Sunrise on the Reaping just yet. So in the main trilogy, Catching Fire is my absolute favorite one. And yes, it is a 5 star too. So there you have it, guys. That is my July reading wrap up of the 8 books that I read in July. As always, let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books. I definitely want to know and what you thought about them, if you liked them or didn't like them. While you're at it down there, make sure to give me a like and subscribe to my channel as well. And make sure to hit the notification bell so you're notified every single time I post a new video. I also always have all of my socials linked in the description box below. There's always at Darling I'm Hooked. I have Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads, Fables, Storygraph, you name it, I got it. And with that, my darlings, let's get hooked.